Welcome to Purim Crafts, from cookie cutter to creative crafts. Purim Crafts is a Jewish holiday that comes out in March. There are clowns. Here are many cookie cutter clowns that are done because it's a very festive holiday. There are the characters from the Purim story, lots of puppets. Then we have grogers, which are noisemakers, 3 different kinds. And now let's see how we can make some crafts that's non-cookie cutter. So here we have a number of different containers that can be chosen for the grogers. So the first step is to give them various containers. I also have some toilet paper rolls that they can choose from. So they first get to choose their container. Then they get to choose their paper, because originally I used to do this and just let them do anything on top of it. And I realized they needed a little bit more direction, and I give them paper that's flexible. Scrapbook paper, regular colored paper, shiny paper, some metallic papers. Tagboard is way too hard. It doesn't stick very easily. Then I give them a whole assortment of materials that they can use. Royal colors that they can cut up with golds and purples as much as you can. I have shiny people, a lot of shiny papers, shiny metallic papers, ribbons, and various types of materials. I try to make it as shiny as possible for royalty. There's gems and sequins and buttons and googly eyes, and there's feathers, and then I had some bows, and then I add crowns, and then they are ready for. Last thing is things that they can use to make the noise with. So here is one child gluing his, he chose a paper towel roll, and he is covering up the paper with it. Yes, he did need some help with it, gluing it on, and he was talking about cutting it. So he cut it down to size. And once he was finished, I offered crowns, and he used a number of different crowns, and there's lots of different materials to make these really nice grogers. And here he tried to put on a certain kind of material, ended up with this other ribbon because the other ribbons were not sticking. Here's another one using a plaid material, and there he also used some shiny materials. And now here I wanted to show you what happened was I put this on a plate to dry, and then I saw that it was sticking to it. So I added some more glue, and I figured that's a great way to cover them up. So I cover up the bottom with the plate, and I put in my noisemakers. I cover it up either by pushing the paper over it or using some tape. You can cut around. You can cut around to keep it there, or else you can also cut a piece of tagboard and make all these slits and tape it around. Now this is the first kind of puppets. These are cardboard pieces puppets. I cut up pieces for bodies, those large rectangles. I cut up small rectangles for the heads, and then a lot of children like to cut them into circles. You can make them available. Then I have enough pieces for arms and enough pieces of legs, and then we have to connect them. You can try to do it with a stapler. It doesn't always work. I find that using a glue gun is what puts them all together nicely, and then they can use these materials to create their puppets. Here is one child and another child. There he's making a Haman, and the other one is making a king, adding a lot of gems and googly eyes and sequins and coloring in. They used a lot of coloring in. So now I'm going to show you how I have them hold these puppets. I take a piece of tagboard, as you see. I cut a little, I bend a little foot, I glue it down, and then on the other side I bend it down again, and I put a little glue on it as well, and then I paste that down, and then they have a really nice handle to hold their puppets. Another kind of puppet is regular paper bag puppet. You give them all those materials, and they decorate on top. The face goes if they so desire. And then we have tongue depressor puppets, where you have a nice big one. I would try to use the really large ones. These aren't so large, and you give them pieces for the head. They paste it on, and then they decorate them. Here are some paper bag puppets that I have in my stock, and here are some of the tongue depressor puppets. And now we're going to go into clowns. So I was trying to figure out, decided to use a very large paper. I was deciding to use what size head to give them. I finally decided to give them a very large one because they need a lot of room to make their clowns. And then what I will offer them is a whole bunch of red things. These could be the noses, things that could be hats, and they can color and add color to things, and things that could be bow ties. Then I will give them all kinds of materials, different papers, and the set of materials that I showed you before that can also be used for the clowns. Then here we have children creating their clowns, and they both each went for the bow tie, but this was a very interesting thing. I thought that those circles were going to be used as noses, and this child decided to make a mouth out of them. Just goes to show you that you give them the material and they do what they want for it. This child wanted me to help him cut because he told me he wasn't a fan of cutting, so he took a nice piece that he had very little cutting to do, and he added that as the body for his clown. He ended up cutting it even more. Here's the other child. He ended up cutting out his own hat. He didn't like any of the other hats. And then he decided to draw. He's only 4, this child. So this was really interesting watching how he was able to draw this body. And then the hat, which is a stripes. It has blue stripes and white stripes. And he ends up coloring in the whole body and the white of the hat. Now, this is the last thing. I want to just show you how I would make Megillahs. You take papers, you have the children tell you the story. This is not something that is done in a whole group. You do it individually, and they dictate to you what their picture is. Like, let's say this is the queen, and they can tell you as much as they can about the story. You staple the whole thing together. You can have, various people who are working with the children create them. You staple it together, and then you fold it up, and then they make a very beautifully decorated cover out of the paper towel roll, and then they stick this Megillah right inside the paper towel roll. For more ideas on how to switch from cookie cutter crafts to creative art, go to eduartforkids.com.